into live stream. Got it. So just take a second. Oh, yeah. Redirect into YouTube, and we are live. Okay.
Cool. Thanks, Alex. Okay, so I think we'll get started now. So hello, everybody, and welcome to our fourth Impact in Action event. It's great to see so many of you here, both on Zoom and on YouTube and things as well. So we're really looking forward to another interesting session today. So I just wanted to kick off with just introducing myself quickly, and then I'll hand over to Melissa. So my name's Charlotte, and I work in the client success team here at Vertigo Ventures. So I'm just one of the organisers of Impact in Action. I'll just be here today to look after the session and answer any questions as we go along as well. So we're delighted to be joined by Melissa, who is going to be giving us an insight into her project Sugarless Green, which is an educational study aiming to support the health and well-being of young children by reinforcing correct oral hygiene techniques and by educating pupils on healthier food choices as alternatives to sugar. I won't go into too much detail as I'll leave that for Melissa, but if you do want to read a little bit more about Melissa's project, either now or after the session, then this is currently available on our global collaboration platform trackimpact.org, which you can see here. So we'll just post the link in the chat, so feel free to go over and have a look on Track Impact at Melissa's project, either during the session or afterwards as well. But it's great to be back kind of exploring the different manifestations of impact. In the UK, we've recently had the results of our national assessment, RAF, earlier this month, where impact now accounts for a quarter of the overall scores and will play a significant role in the allocation of funding to UK universities over the next several years. But then also on a wider scale, we can see that impact is continually aligning closely, not only to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, but also the overall strategic plans and objectives for universities across the globe. So we actually saw at the Times Higher Education Innovation Impact Summit in Stockholm that more and more universities' strategic plans now embed impact and the SDGs at that central level. So this is not only being proven to attract more students, but also from the perspective of individual researchers, impact and SDGs are becoming a pivotal idea for reputation building, and while the clock is ticking to achieve the SDGs as well. So therefore, we wanted to use Impact in Action to put these projects and research at the central focus and showcase all of the brilliant work, such as Melissa's project, that's being undertaken. So that's just a bit of background really about why we've developed Impact in Action. Finally, just a few quick housekeeping rules. We want to keep this super interactive, so definitely take advantage to get to know other attendees in the chat, and also drop then any other questions you have along the way in our Q&A function so it doesn't get lost. But anyway, you didn't come to hear from me, so I will just dive right in and pass it over to Melissa to introduce herself and take it away.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, and thank you to you and Vertigo Ventures for this opportunity to speak today. So I'll just share my slides. There we go. Hopefully you should be able to see that screen. Yes, okay. All right, so my name is Dr. Melissa Chogi. I am the institution's research culture lead and senior lecturer at the School of Education at the University of Roehampton. And I'm really delighted today to talk to you a little bit about a project on oral hygiene and gardening. And just to dive straight in On Track Impact, I share Sugarless Green, which is the original project in the series of projects that have been subsequently funded. But it's really important for me to tell you that moving from Sugarless Green, which was one original idea, this project has morphed and grown over a year and a half and has been successfully funded by 3 different funders to promote various aspects of how we have looked at oral care and trying to develop alternative ways for children to understand brushing their teeth using organic and sustainable resources. It's all been very, very small pots of seeding money. And I think this is how you grow and build your methodology, as researchers will tell you, into something that becomes a bit more sustainable. As I have informed Charlotte and Alex, this is very much a work in progress and a project that's on its feet. And we have just recently started the documentary filming for it. So you are getting to see one of the original cuts of this film. So why tell you so much about the project when I can actually show you a little bit of it?
Many of the oral care interventions that we have across this country, and indeed across the globe, focus on using technology and trying to be smarter about the ways that we use apps to teach children about oral care, electronic toothbrushes, or even doing fluoride treatments in schools. My project goes back to a much more natural, sustainable way of approaching oral care. I use the concepts of oral hygiene coupled this with the resources and techniques that we use in gardens. So I try to get the children to relate to the ideas of oral care, but where sugar is not a natural component and it's very organic, and in a way it helps them understand the more abstract concepts.
It's really important teaching kids oral care in this way. It's really child-led, and the children were active from the onset with the different materials they were using and how it was linked to the national curriculum. I thought it's something us as teachers could use in the school.
In this intervention, there is a 1-hour program that the children do, which focuses on using carrots, where they pull carrots out of the soil. And the concepts they're trying to relate to here are that the soil is like their gum and the carrot is like their tooth. So when they pull the carrot out of the soil and they brush up and down, it teaches them that brushing harder does not mean brushing better, and also the importance of getting into the cracks and the creases of the carrot, that brushing thoroughly is really important.
I think it's an exciting way for them to learn about looking after their teeth. It would be something that sticks in their memory, perhaps when they get home tonight and they get their toothbrush out, how they're going to be brushing their teeth in the best way possible.
We also use a potato that we carve into teeth and sprinkle with herbs to teach children to use proper flossing techniques. Often when the children start, they don't quite know how to use a flossing instrument, or they've never come across one before. So being able to show them that you go up and down and the importance of moving left to right is something that they understand and grasp a lot more clearer when they think of the potato and how it's carved into a mold of teeth. Another component we use is sticky golden syrup that we put on oranges. Now this may sound quite bizarre, but it's to show the children that long after they've eaten, whether it be sugary-based products or not, that food and residue sticks to their teeth. So using the golden syrup helps them see that with all of their best intentions to brush, they still do have that residue and that muckiness and that gunk on there.
I've never seen anything like this in 18 years, where they've done it with fruit and vegetables and toothbrushes and pulling up the actual carrots from the ground. So it's very, across the curriculum, teaching them about how to grow things, teaching them about how many spoonfuls of sugar there is in each thing. Which,
it's healthy
eating. It's a
eating.
very healthy eating
Outdoors.
as well.
People seem to think that oral care has become...
Okay, so I'll just stop it there, because I'm sure you want to hear a little bit about me telling you than me telling you on video. All right, so just moving on there. So just to recap, philosophically, what's the idea? Now, in that video, the comments that you were hearing were from teachers who had no experience on what they were going to be participating in until we showed up and did the workshops with the kids. And the students that were there, it was really good for our university as well, because the students were teachers in training and students from our university who got to be the facilitators of running out this program. So really beneficial for all participants involved. So the philosophy behind the project is to really try and get the concepts of teeth brushing and oral care, this abstract information, done in a way that children can understand and relate to it, which means moving away from the conventional products that they use, which may be just fluoride based or a toothbrush or the instruments that they are used to seeing and having at their disposal, to thinking very much more about the products that they eat and consume. So we put together a customized dental program by speaking to dentists, and children at different ages have to use different techniques to brush their teeth, which makes it a bit difficult at schools to just tell them to do it one way or another. So speaking to some dentists, I designed this program and parallelized it with everyday items that can be used and found in the garden. And it was all about understanding the impact of sugar on one's teeth. Parallel to good oral care practices is, of course, trying to look at the diets that children have. So part of the project started with children tracking what they would eat and how frequently. So how much of it was vegetable, how much of it was chocolates and sweets, and looking over the period of time of having done the intervention project, did they continue or not continue? Now, this was really difficult with school holidays and getting this data. So from stage 1 of the project to stage 2, this was one of the first changes that I had to make, because reinforcing just the healthy eating was not proving to be enough. We wanted, again, and this brought us back, to do the project in an environment where sugar is forward. When you step into a garden, you don't really think about processed sugar. And using the gardening techniques. So we use bamboo toothbrushes, paper bags, everything is upcycled and recycled. The carrots that they use are fed to our campus chickens. It's a zero waste project. And we create this environment that is completely immersive. They get, it's based philosophically on Froebelian principles. So they do get immersed in the environment. It transports them from thinking of a dentist's office into a garden space. And for schools that do not have this resource, part 2 and 3 of my project that I'm on right now has been experimenting with the environment where we can do the project. So in areas where a garden is not available, can we package these resources and take them into the classroom? What would be the impact? Would they still have the same sort of benefits that we're seeing 6 to 8 weeks later when we survey the children again? So I'll tell you a little bit about the design as I move forward. But let's start with the crisis. Most of the data that's collected here was before the pandemic, so we'll just err on the side of caution and assume that it's maybe a little bit worse. So global survey has shown that the UK was ranked as one of the last for promoting oral care for children. And since this came out, there has been a major push in regions and in boroughs across the country to target innovation and projects with schools. But right now, what does the crisis look like? In London alone, we spend over 7 million a year on emergency hospitalization for tooth extractions. This has huge socioeconomic roll-on effects, because parents need to stay home, look after the kids, and the kids miss something like 60,000 days of school a year. And this is proving a major interruption. And when we went into the schools and spoke to the children, so many of them, 10-year-olds, have had permanent teeth actually removed already, and will tell you that their first memories of the dentists are often very painful experiences. So it's not really motivating them to continue with oral care through those measures. The mental health impacts are maybe what was a little bit unexpected, that 12% of the children right now have nightmares about their teeth. And the Oral Health Foundation found that, 18% of them were really stressed about their smile. Having a conversation with the children about this, the students that participated were quite amazed, because this was never really a pressure 18-20 years ago, when thinking of oral care, that you would have mental anxiety about the appearance of your smile. Another element of this, having spoken to dentists, is also that in the borough that we're at right now in London, we are one of the top 5 worst boroughs for seeing this condition become worse for particularly children from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds, where they are more susceptible to genetic gum disease. So speaking to dentists, we've been able to think about bespoking education programs that will help parents understand what early onset gum disease looks like in the mouths of children who are from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. So this is an additional level of concern that we've had. And since the lockdown, these groups of Black and minority ethnic cultural groups have been more resistant to going to the dentists for checkup than white counterparts. So this brings us back to, well, part of the oral care, we spoke to teachers. What does the curriculum do about it? What is the expectation that is meant to be covered? Because when we think of trying to roll something forward with children, we think of schools. And there's a very brief bit of information about how we think of dental care in schools and what teachers need to encourage children to learn about, which is more along the lines of healthy checkups and good brushing, and the risks of having or containing sugar in the body, or high sugary diets can lead to more cavities. But it doesn't really emphasize the brushing that they do. The Mayor of London has tried to push projects like Healthy Schools London to talk about increased fluoride and supervised brushing, which puts a bit more pressure on the healthcare, the teaching sector as well, because most of the clinical guidance for teachers are actually around supervised brushing. Supervised brushing will work so long as we invest the time for teachers and the resources to do it for the children, but wouldn't it be so much more better if the children could understand what they were doing and be able to take that autonomous step to look after their own oral care? So these are just some of the interventions that are currently at play that my project competes against, or also competing. If we get the good outcome, it's all great, but most of them are very clinically based, where they have either people who come into the school and do fluoride treatments. Again, a lot of investment in resources when we can change the program a little bit. I won't go through that video, but that's just a song. So for families who come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds where they can't afford for the child to have a timed instrument to do brushing, this is also a challenge. And we really want to account for those families who may not have the education or be able to have the access to know or speak foreign languages and aren't able to communicate clearly with teachers in schools. We really want the kids to be able to understand how to brush their teeth. So some of the findings, just quickly, because I know we may have some questions. These are some snapshots of when we took the resources into classrooms, what it would look like on the desks, and the children were very excited because the concept of having soil and carrots on their desk really blew their mind, and they made everything quite sticky, and I think that was really enjoyed. So what we found, these are some of the statements that students made about their shock. This is our student facilitators from the university, from interacting with the kids and understanding how difficult it was for them to go to the dentist, or the pain and the anxieties they feel about their mouths. And this again is just another comment that one of the students made in regards to participating in the program. So the benefits were mutual and really eye-opening. Here are the examples of so in the project, how we measure if this intervention is working, we give the students a pre-booklet where they fill in a sort of an activity booklet, and they tell us, without the help of their teachers, what they know about brushing. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, for the school that participated in the intervention, we ask them to do this booklet again. So it's 6 to 8 weeks after they do the intervention. And we have a control group who just do the booklets and don't participate in the activities. We change up the options to rearrange the multiple choice and rearrange the questions so that it's not too memorable for the children. These are the questions that we ask them in the booklet, and by doing the factor analysis, we were able to see that there were questions based on technique versus questions that were more knowledge-based. And again, from stage 1 to stage 2, these have been finessed because they weren't always quite clear. So moving on, the project has been tweaking and amending as we go to try and make this really relatable but effective in the information that we were gathering. From stage 1, and this is data from only stage 1, stage 3, potato teeth, is currently ongoing. We found that there was statistical significance with the technique questions of 6 and 7 about flossing, which seemed to be the most underrepresented area of the curriculum knowledge for both the control and the intervention group, because the intervention group really took off in terms of knowing about flossing a lot more than the control group, who did not do the project at all. And then we found that for the knowledge, definitely understanding the effects of the sugar and how frequently they should brush their teeth, how long they need to brush their teeth, came out as relevant as well. What we did from this finding was, it's very complex to get the data because we're looking at an intervention post and pre, plus a control group and an experiment group. So there's a lot of dimension here to capture. However, we found that it was effective to take the questions that had the least significance and rework them in a way that would tie into the techniques that we were using in the project. And just to wind up, we did plant the idea of how many teaspoons of sugar were in each of these items for the children who did the intervention. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, we were testing to see if they could listen versus the activities that they were doing with their hands. And of course, some of them got it and some of them didn't. We had a little bit of an issue where it was multiple choice. For the control group, it was maybe a little easier to guess. As you can see, for Coke, they really overestimated how much sugar was in a can. But what was of interest was seeing just the clustering for the jellies. I don't think they think of how much sugar is in a can versus how much sugar is actually in a jelly, which is like a gummy bear or a packet of gummy bears. So they definitely, you could see the intervention group got that spot on a little bit better after doing the intervention in the post-testing versus the kids who did not. Again, for the hot chocolate, we found that, you know, for we saw this kind of similarity happening here in terms of how the children responded pre and post intervention. So the next steps going forward are definitely thinking of partnerships, because there was a lot to be said from teachers who did not know about the different stages of oral care, and also speaking to dentists who train dentists, how to deal with the anxieties of little children, how to relate to them in a way that might make the clinical experience of coming and having their visit a lot more enjoyable. I definitely believe there is scope to do a knowledge exchange project between both fields. The second thing as well would be to try and develop an area of the curriculum that lifts from what we currently do, which is just to say, promote proper oral care and brushing techniques, to something that is very tangible and can be module based, like taking this program into schools. And the next step for this project is definitely, having gone through 3 rounds of funding and tweaking and finessing the design, is to try and scale it up across the UK. All right, so that is in a nutshell a summary of the project. Here are my contact details. Please do keep in touch, and I look forward to getting some feedback. back to you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Melissa. That was really interesting. I'm definitely going to stay away from hot chocolate now. I think you've educated us all on that. So I think we'll just have a look and see what questions there are. I know I kind of have a few questions as well. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop those in the Q&A. We got one from Andy. So Andy says, what a fantastic initiative. Thank you so much for sharing. Could you talk a little bit more about the inspiration behind using gardening in particular as an educational tool for oral health?
Thank you, Andy. That is a really good question. And I was literally sitting on my couch and I was just reading a lot about these the policy documents that were coming across in terms of looking at oral care. And I thought, thinking of research innovation, I thought, gosh, there must be a better way to do this. And I think reflecting back on my own childhood, I really didn't have a more creative way of thinking of oral care. And I thought, what if we were to take the food products and to try and create a world where, children can imagine using this to understand that the carrot can be, the teeth, and the soil could be the gum and whatnot. And that's really how it started, on my couch, just sitting there and coming up with two random things and making them connect.
Well, that's amazing. I would have never thought that. Definitely. And the project you're currently doing now is the potato teeth one. How's that going? Everything with that?
It's going really well. We are just collecting data from the schools. The children had a wonderful time. Schools definitely want to engage. And if you've ever recruited schools to do projects in the past, you'll understand that it's really, really difficult. But here we have teachers who are really excited and want to be part of it. Part of the funding also pays for like a startup dental kit. So we leave the children with, because we know their families may not be in a position to purchase floss and their own toothbrush. So we push the sustainable elements of the project by giving them bamboo toothbrushes, and we tell them, you could go bury this in your backyard when you're finished with it. So it's just encouraging those thinking of more environmental ways of doing research as well.
Yeah. I had a question as well about the booklets. So you did the pre and post booklets. Which kind of areas of that did you see the biggest kind of change in understanding or change in attitude and awareness? Kind of question?
So in the pre-booklet, like when you go to some schools that are socioeconomically advantaged, so their parents will take them to the dentist, and going to the dentist in the UK is free up to the age of 18, your checkups. Many parents don't know that because, again, of English second language, or they don't have that much interaction with the school. We found that when it came to knowing how long to brush your teeth or the movements of brushing your teeth, children in those more advantaged schools knew the answers to that. So they performed better in the pre-booklets than our control group. The control group did, better than the experiment group. But the biggest area was really in the flossing, because after the intervention, our experiment group took off and really knew flossing really, really well, compared to the control group that didn't know much about that at all. So we saw a massive change there, and flossing is critical for kids. Especially it just gives them that extra time to caring for their teeth. And if they miss areas with the brushing, they'll at least get into those cavity areas.
Yeah. And the flossing was done with the potato teeth and the herbs. Well.
Yeah.
Great.
We have
We've got another question here. So how have the levels of success varied across the 3 different stages you've delivered?
So student enjoyment has been extremely high in every stage, and child enjoyment as well, extremely high. In terms of the data that I showed you came from stage 1. That's where the analysis was done in the Sugarless Green project. We are just collecting the data on the potato teeth. So I'm hoping that the tweaks that were done to the Sugarless Green project, we can see that happening in the potato teeth. The gardening and gums, we collected a different kind of data because we brought a dentist in for that one to speak to parents and communities from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. So we did, we created a more of a survey, so parents had some follow-up activities with the kids. So we tried to change the methodology for that a little bit to make it more community-based.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping by the analysis in about a month or so, after schools are closing when they reopen, I'm hoping by the end of summer to have a publication out on the first stage of this project, and to have the data in to see if the tweaks worked for this this round of the potato teeth.
And what were the main tweaks that you made with the two?
So the main tweaks were to make closer associations between the 4 activities that we do in the intervention and the questions that we ask the children. So it could be that the questions in the first round were not specific enough to what I was having the student do with the children in the classroom. So definitely amending that a little bit and making sure that the training that the students were using specific words and that their training was just polished up properly might help create a better correlation between what was asked and what was understood.
Great, thanks Melissa. Just see if we've got any further questions. Alex, did you have any questions at all?
I suppose mine's more general. If you had to kind of, no, it's a tricky one. If you had to kind of identify one kind of key learning from how that you might apply in perhaps in other areas of research, or key learning from getting from starting the project to actually getting a result, what do you think the most important kind of structure was around getting there?
Oh, that is a tough one, Alex. I think, are you asking like in terms of impact, like how this would, how this would work?
You know, the kind of method structure of getting there from beginning.
So I think it comes back down to the abstraction, and a lot of the basic knowledge. Research has shown us that the things we understand the most as children or as humans are things that whatever kind of circumstance you put us in, we can tell you back the story from start to finish on how to fix something. So we don't rely too much on following a step in our mind. We can pick up anywhere and know exactly what we're doing. When it comes to oral care, I'm hoping that the one thing that they can connect with that abstraction so that they can start to see meaning for health and for their own personal well-being and development as stemming from that outdoor space. And I think if we can lean towards that, and oral care can be part of that, or starting that conversation. If you can think of your teeth when you're in a garden, what else can you think of? That might be the direction of, wow, we have impact for me.
It's interesting. Yeah, thank you. No, it's great. I suppose my other question was, when did you say the documentary is out again?
So the documentary should be out in a couple of weeks.
Right.
And I'll happily pass you the link to it. We just need to put the titles on. And it's a really short documentary. The aim is to try and roll this out to dentists so they can play it in their waiting room, and to local hospitals. So they can also just have it on rotation while people wait. So they're just about 10 minutes long. So just a good attention span, just enough for waiting for an appointment.
I think that's great. I mean, it is a good thing to have because it's kind of quite boring when you just sat there, isn't it? So I think actually having something educational to watch is quite useful.
Definitely. But we are really keen to hear from anyone who may have contacts with dentists who might be interested in partnering onto projects, because getting their intellectual input might just help the design and lift the challenge, and we can actually bespoke it for young children, nursery children, primary age children, children into secondary school quite differently, and get the right techniques for brushing at each stage. So that is definitely what we're aiming to work towards. The big dreams.
Okay. Great. Well, as I said, there's quite a few interested people who sent their apologies but want to receive videos. So, I mean, I can mention that in my follow-up as well. and then we'll see what happens. Okay, great.
Great, thanks, Miss. I think that I don't think we have any more questions. If we get any more follow-up ones, we'll send them over your way as well.
No worries.
But I think that is everything from us. Unless, do you have anything final to add at all, Melissa?
Oh, just a big thank you. And thank you to Andy and Emily for their questions and responses that we can see, and to everyone watching. Thank you very much.
Great. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. And we shall end it there.
Yeah.